Now, we will move to the other part of Chapter 1, also very important part, Principles of Economics. The study of economics has many facets, but it is unified by several central ideas. In this part, we look at 10 principles of economics. Don't worry if you don't understand them all at first, or if you aren't completely convinced. We will explore the ideas more fully in later chapters. The 10 principles are introduced here to give you an overview of what economics is all about. Consider this chapter a preview of coming attractions. Now, 10 principles of economics are divided into three groups. Principles of how people make decisions, principles of how people interact, principles of how economy as a whole works. There is no mystery to what an economy is. Whether we're talking about the economy of Hanoi, Vietnam, the United States or the whole world, an economy is just that a group of people dealing with one another as they go about their lives. Because the behavior of an economy reflects the behavior of an individual who make up the economy, we begin our study of economics with four principles of individual decisions making. Principle 1. People face trade-offs. You may have heard the old saying, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Do you understand the meaning of this saying? The expression conveys the idea that nothing in life is truly free, or things appearing free in fact always have a cost. To get one thing that we like, we usually have to give up another thing that we also like. Making decisions requires trading off one goal against another. Consider a student who must decide how to allocate her most valuable resource, her time. She can spend all her time studying economics or studying law or divide it between the two fields. For every hour she spends on studying one subject, she gives up an hour she could have used studying the other. For every hour she spends studying, she gives up an hour that she could have spent napping by writing, watching TV, or working at her part-time job for some extra spending money. Or consider parents decide how to spend their family income. They can buy food, clothing, or a family vacation, or they can save some of the family income for retirement or the children's college education. When they choose to spend an extra dollar on one of these goods, they have one less dollar to spend on some the other good. When people are grouped in a society, they face different kinds of trade-offs. The classic trade-offs is between guns and butter. The more a society spends on national defense guns, the less it can spend on consumer goods butter to raise standard of living. Also important in the modern society is the trade-off between a clean environment and a high level of income. Another trade-off that society has to face is between efficiency and equality. Efficiency means that society is getting the maximum benefits from its scarce resources. Equality means that those benefits are distributed uniformly among society's members. In other words, efficiency refers to the size of the economic pie, and equality refers to how the pie is divided into individual slices. People are likely to make good decisions if they understand the options they have available. Our study of economics, therefore, starts by acknowledging life's trade-offs. There are three laws that affect decision making. Firstly, law of scarcity you already know. Background of economics is scarcity of resources. Secondly, law of diminishing returns you will know more on the later chapters. Thirdly, law of increasing opportunity cost I will show you now. Basic economic problem scarcity could be illustrated by a simple model known as Production Possibilities Frontier (PPF). PPF is a graph that shows the various combinations of output that economy can produce given the available factors, production, and available production technology that frames used to turn these factors into output. To be more easier for you to imagine, we examine the example of time allocation first. Because time is a scarce resource, so assume that each day an individual has 16 working hours and he has to allocate these 16 hours between work and play. We can see that if we move from point A to point B, we give up 4 hours of work so we can gain 4 hours of play. Again, if we move from point B to point C, 4 hours of work given up, 4 hours of play gained. This is straight line production possibility. And one thing observed from straight line production possibility is that opportunity cost is always constant. 1 hour of work always equal 1 hour of play. In this case, this is very obvious observation. This is not always the case. Opportunity cost of increasing our consumption or production of particular good or activity will not always remain constant. If the resources needed to produce more of the good that we want to produce more are not exactly the same as the resources needed to produce the good that we are giving up. In other words, in the typical production possibility frontier, we may face increasing opportunity costs as we produce more of a particular good. That's today's lesson that we will focus on. Now we're gonna think about a hypothetical country with a fixed amount of land, labor, capital, and technology resources. And we're gonna look at the trade-off that country faces regarding how allocates its resources to one of two goods, either bread or car. Looking at the graph here, we can see that this country can produce either 200 units of bread at point A or 4 units of car at point E. Keeping in mind that factor resources are scarce, we know that it would be impossible for this country to produce at point X with 200 units of bread and 4 units of car because there are not enough land, labor, and capital to do this. The question is, what is this country's production possibility frontier look like? It can be straight line as the previous example of work and play because the straight line presents the constant opportunity cost between bread and car. It's not realistic. It cannot be 1 unit of bread always equal 1 unit of car. There is most likely an increasing opportunity cost. What is increasing opportunity cost production possibility frontier look like? It is a curve outward from origin. Let's look at the larger version of this graph. Let's see how increasing opportunity cost is illustrated in the PPF. Assume that this country is standing at point A. It uses all its scarce resources to produce only bread. So it can produce 200 units of bread, but no car. As it moves from point A to point B, to produce more units of car, it has to give up 30 units of bread. Again, as it moves from point B to point C, to produce more 1 unit of car, it has to give up 50 units of bread. To continue these movements, you can see that the quantity of bread this country has to sacrifice will be larger and larger as more quantity of car produced. This is increasing opportunity cost. As we have known, resources are scarce. The economy cannot produce at point X. With resources it has, the economy can produce at any point on or inside PPF, but cannot produce at points outside the frontier. An outcome is said to be efficient if the economy is getting all it can from its scarce resources. Points on the PPF represent efficient levels of production. When the economy produces at such a point, for example point A, there is no way to produce more of one good without producing less of one good. Point F represents an inefficient outcome. Let's look at this example here. Assume that a firm can produce 6 units of good X or 12 units of good Y per hour with its current resources. The opportunity cost of a unit of X is A. 72 units of Y, B. 12 units of Y, C. 6 units of Y, D. 2 units of Y, and E. 1.5 units of Y. The answer is D. Now there is one problem you might be curious. When does PPF move? The PPF can move to a new place in the future. Economic growth shifts the curve outwards, therefore some combinations of goods that were previously unattainable become attainable. Look at this example. Which of the following would shift the PPF outwards? A. An increase in the population of working age. B. A reduction in unemployment. C. A reduction in VAT. D. An increase in the general level of prices. E. A reduction in expenditure on education. The answer is A. Resources increase will shift the PPF outwards. PPF represents trade-offs that society has to face. Facing trade-offs, each individual has to answer 3 basic questions of economics. What to produce, how to produce, and to whom to produce. Principle 2. The cost of something is what you give up to get it. Because people face trade-offs, making decisions require comparing benefits and costs of alternative courses of action. However, in many cases, the cost of an action is not obvious as it may seem to be. Consider decision to go to university, for example. The main benefits are intellectual enrichment and a lifetime of better job opportunities. But what are the costs? Money spent on tuition, room, textbooks, etc. This total does not truly present what you give up for a year in university. There are 2 problems with this calculation. First, it includes something that are not really costs of going to the university. If you don't go to university, you still need to eat and a place to live. Second, this calculation ignores the largest cost of going to university, your time. When you spend 4 years listening to lecturers, reading books and writing papers, you cannot spend that time doing jobs, getting money. This cost is called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is whatever must be given up to obtain some items. When making decisions, decision makers should be aware of the opportunity costs that accompany each possible action. Principle 2. Rational people think at the margin. Economists normally assume that people are rational. Rational people systematically and purposefully do the best they can to achieve their objectives, given the available opportunities. Firms decide how many workers to hire and how much product to manufacture and sell to maximize profit. Individuals decide how much time to spend on working and what goods and services to buy with the resulting income to achieve the highest possible level of satisfaction. Marginal changes describes the small incremental adjustments to an existing plan of action. Notice that margin means edge. Marginal changes are adjustments around the edges of what you are doing. Rational people think the margin means that they make decisions by comparing marginal benefits and marginal costs. If Bill Gates sees a $100 on the road, should he stop and pick it up? What do you think? In fact, within some seconds, he stops to pick that dollar. He earns more than that. The conclusion is that he should not stop and pick it up if he thinks of the margin. The marginal benefit of that action is $100, but the marginal cost is more than $100. So, he shouldn't do the action. Now we will move to the last principle in the group 1. Principle 4. People respond to incentives. What are incentives? Incentive is something that induces people to act. Because rational people make decisions by comparing costs and benefits, they respond to incentive. For example, when price of apple rises, people decide to eat fewer apples. At the same time, apple farmers decide to grow and harvest more apples. In other words, a higher price in a market provides an incentive for buyers to buy less and for sellers to sell more. After exploring the first 4 principles, we will work on quick ways to help you apply those theoretical content. 1. Describe an important trade-off you recently faced. 2. Give an example of some action that has both a monetary and non-monetary opportunity cost. 3. Describe an incentive your parents offer you in effort to influence your behavior. After